Welcome. So the purpose of this video is just to kind of give you a real quick run through of what we're doing on this Desmo activity. I'm trying to answer all the questions I think you might have ahead of time, so that way you won't get stuck as you're working through this. Try to keep this as short as we possibly can. Okay, so basically what we're going to be doing on each of the slides is we're going to be creating these right triangles, these white triangles in the middle. Okay, they're going to be in the middle of three squares. If you look at the next screen, right, you can see we're missing this third square, which would create the triangle here. So that's what we're going to be doing, is putting in this pink square so that way it forms this triangle. Read through this, see what it's asking you. I did want to point out the second line. It says, if needed, you can change the length by typing a math expression. It's going to be needed. You're going to have to do this. But I think it's slides 3 and 4 walk us through how to do that. So we'll take a look at how to do that here in just a second. So in each of these slides, they're going to basically be giving you two side lengths of a triangle and be asking you to put in the third side length. So the side lengths of the triangle are 6 and 8. Right, and then the squares associated with the side lengths they gave me are 36, right, because 6 times 6, or 6 squared, is 36, and 8 times 8, or 8 squared, is 64, right? So these are the squares that go with the two side lengths they give me, and really what they're asking for is what's the third side length, okay? And you're going to type that third side length up here in this box. So let's just put in a number just to see what's going to happen when we put a number in. 5. Right? It puts in the side length of 5, so it starts to actually draw that third side of the triangle in here. But you can see obviously 5 was not big enough, right? It didn't get all the way across to make the actual triangle. You can see here this is 5 is the side length I tried, and then this is the square associated with the number I put in, right? Because 5 times 5, or 5 squared, is where that 25 is coming from. Okay, so thinking to what we've been learning about the Pythagorean theorem, remember it's leg squared plus leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. So if I'm thinking which one of those am I looking for? Am I looking for a leg or am I looking for the hypotenuse? I can see the number, the side length I'm trying to enter is the hypotenuse here, because the 6 and the 8 are what are making the right angle. Remember, the legs make the right angle, and the side opposite the right angle, or the side not a part of the right angle, is what's called the hypotenuse. So that's what I'm entering. I'm entering in the hypotenuse length. And the hypotenuse is the longest side length of the triangle, which means it's also the biggest side length. Which means since it's the biggest thing, that means I need to add these two things together. Remember, the two squares add together to give me the square of the hypotenuse. So I'm taking 36 plus 64 to get 100. But obviously that's not the answer, because if this side length is 6 and this side length is 8, 100 is way too big. And that's because we have to take the square root of 100 to get the actual side length. Okay, so hopefully we've practiced enough to kind of understand that that to find the side length of any square, all we do is we take the square root of the area. So if the area is 100, I take the square root of that, which is 10, because 10 squared, or 10 times 10, is 100. So the answer here is going to be 10. Okay. As you're moving along, if you're still kind of struggling, that's okay. Worst case scenario, do a guess and check, right? We put in the 5 and that was too short. So let's try another number. Let's try 8, right? I didn't get there. Let's just jump up. Let's try 11. That's a little too big, right? So, and we already put in the real answer. We know it's 10. So you can do some guess and checking to figure out what works here, but then make sure after you do the guess and checking, look at the numbers and see how they all fit together. That's going to help you to figure out what to do, right? You can see here the 36 plus the 64. When I add those together, that's where the 100 comes from. And then to get from 100 to 10, remember, you take the square root of this number. So the square root of 100 is 10. Gives me that. Okay, so that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to do that a couple times. When you get here, you're going to be dealing with a square root. So think about what number you need to put inside the square root to make this all work out. I'm going to let you kind of play with that and figure that out. And then in the next one, remember I did tell you you're going to have to use these square root expressions. So in here, you're going to have to enter in a square root sometimes to make this work. So here they're just telling you up here to put in that square root symbol. You just type in the letters SQRT, right? You just type SQRT and then it enters, makes this little square root symbol for you. You are going to have to use these square roots along the way to make this work. Okay, so go through here. You're going to do this a whole bunch of times. Really pay attention, figure out how all the numbers work together to make this work. And then when we get towards the end of these slides here, they're going to have you filling in these tables or these charts. Okay, and really the purpose of doing this is to really figure out how does this all work together. How do the side lengths associate with the squares? How do the squares associate with each other, right? And how do all of these numbers fit together to make these right triangles work? You're going to do this a couple times. And then slide 16 is really important for me. I'm going to be reading through here and seeing how you guys are summarizing your thinking, right? This is where you're going to summarize your strategy for finding the missing side lengths of a right triangle. This is where I'm going to see, are you really understanding this essential? Okay, so I'm going to really be focusing in on slide 16. So make sure you do a good job here and explain your thinking to the best of your ability so I can see where everybody's at. Okay, so that's the general idea. If you still have questions, please email those to me and I will set up a time to try to get together to get your questions answered.